Hello again YouTube, and welcome back to Just Get a Tesla. Today I'm going to talk about why my Tesla Model Y is quicker and cheaper on a long distance trip than a petrol car. Okay, so I know exactly what kind of response that I'm going to get from the uninitiated. What on earth is he on about? You're driving an EV, that means you've got to keep stopping and charging it. That means you've got to sit and wait. You've got to do all of this kind of nonsense. It simply isn't true. So let me tell you about the trip that I've just done yesterday in my Tesla Model Y with a car full of the family and full of luggage. So we were fairly heavily loaded. The boot was full. All of the seats, well, okay, not the middle seats in the back, were full. So these are the things that mean that you are going to burn more energy, or if you're in a petrol or a diesel car, burn more fuel. But how can I put it? This was a very, very simple driving experience, and we drove 588 miles, and that is a long trip for absolutely anybody. A long trip. We had 11 and a half hours on the road, which again, you know, that's a sizable proposition when you're thinking about taking the family anywhere. But driving my Tesla Model Y, it absolutely could not have been easier. And I'm now going to tell you why it was cheaper and quicker than driving my Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid. So I've had quite a few cars over the years, but as big family cars, I suppose the Outlander and potentially the Volvo S90 before that was the kind of cars that I would do big distances in. So I am currently sat in the Doubletree Hilton in Dartford. I have got a view of the bridge literally in front of me in the car park, and I have done this trip quite a few times in both the Tesla and also in the Outlander. This is a trip that I am used to doing, and the brilliant thing about the experience that we had driving down in the Tesla yesterday was that it was quicker than it would have been in the Outlander. Now let me tell you why that is. So we had 2 charging stops yesterday. Only 2, 588 miles in an EV in early spring, and we only needed to stop twice. So we plugged the car in overnight, as anybody who's got an EV does. I preconditioned the battery and set a departure time because it's Tesla. You use the app. And having done that, I got in and the car was on 95% and it was nice and warm, and we all got in and we set off. We then drove as far as the supercharger at Edinburgh Newbridge. Now that is a site that has got V3 superchargers, which means you get 250 kilowatt maximum charge. I arrived on about 20%, and that meant I was getting about 225, something like that, as a peak speed. Now we had been driving at that point for just under 3 hours. The plan was always to stop and eat a McDonald's breakfast. It's a family trip, let's indulge ourselves a little bit. So we parked up, we plugged the car in, we strolled across to McDonald's. We had a fabulous McDonald's breakfast, yay, and then we went back to the car. So we didn't waste a single minute of that stop. We'd been driving for 3 hours. The next leg we were planning to do was nearly 4 hours, so we had a stop, and we literally parked the car up, we walked to McDonald's, we ate, we walked back again, and we got in the car and off we went. Now here's the thing, while we were eating, the car was charging up. Had we been in the Mitsubishi, we were likely to have stopped earlier at McDonald's, so we'd have stopped probably at 4th at McDonald's on the A90 on the way down. So that would have added, even if we were doing the drive-through, that adds another 10 minutes or so of stop. And then we would have needed to have fueled up. Now Edinburgh, to try and find cheaper fuel, I do not fill up, when I had a petrol car anyway, on the motorway or on main roads, because you just get absolutely fleeced by the fuel company. So you're looking for somewhere that is cheaper to fill up. So basically, let's find a supermarket that's along the route. So what I would almost certainly have done was I would have got as far as Dundee Morrison's and I would have topped the car off. The point was, in the Tesla, I plugged it in while we ate, and then we got in the car. That was plenty of charge to be able to go from the Edinburgh supercharger down the road as far as Abington to join the motorway, to then drive past Carlisle as far as Penrith, and then over the A66 to Scotch Corner, and then down the motorway to Ferrybridge. And when we got to Ferrybridge, it's another V3 supercharger site. Plug the car in, have something else to eat, because again, we're on holiday, let's have a bit of fun, and we're in the car all day. And again, we plug the car in, we eat, and when we're finished eating, we get back in the car and off we go. Not a single minute wasted charging. We needed to stop and we needed to eat, and when we'd finished eating and going to the toilet and other things, we got back in the car and off we went. So there is a notion, I think, talked about with people who've got EVs, and Tesla, yes, absolutely, because let's be brutally honest, if you're watching this in the UK, you will have seen stuff in the Daily Mail and on other right-wing news platforms that basically says that EVs are evil. They are literally, you know, Satan's vehicle, where you are going to have to queue for an eternity to plug the thing up because you've done a bad thing. And it simply isn't true. We don't have to queue. You just rock up, you plug the thing in, and off you go again. Not a minute wasted. Not a single minute. And I would have had to have wasted, even if it was only a few minutes, to go to a petrol station and fill the thing up. So the Outlander had not the biggest fuel tank. Now, okay, so I could have driven the Volvo S90, which was a diesel, and that would have gone much further, but even on that, I would likely have needed to have filled the thing up before I got down here, because 588 miles, even on that diesel tank, was probably pushing it a little bit. So you're still looking at 2 eating stops and a fuel stop on top, whereas with the Tesla, we combined eating and fuel at the same time. And then we need to talk about the other thing, which is cost. So how can I put this? It is significantly cheaper here in April 2023 for me to drive my Tesla long distance than it is the cars that I had previously. So again, if I use the Outlander as a good example, so at the moment you are paying what, £1.47.9p a litre, something like that for unleaded, if you can get a decent price at the supermarket. So in the Outlander, you're going to be using in the region of 66 point, I think I've got it as 831 litres, so nearly 67 litres of fuel. And if that is £1.47.9p per litre, that means you're going to be spending 98.84 pence on the distance that we did down here. Now then, I'm not even including the price of charging its 13 kilowatt hour battery up from home. So I'm literally only talking about the petrol cost. It's not even a fair comparison, guys. For the Outlander, you just got used to the fact that you needed to stop and fill up and pay a fortune every 300 miles or so. With the Tesla now, how can I put this? Here in early April 2023, supercharger costs in the UK are ridiculously cheap. You know, I paid 39p a kilowatt hour at Ferrybridge on the way down. 39p. And that is sufficient to be able to get me a third of the trip. So I think it cost me £8.29 to fill the car up to 95% before we set off. So £8.29 plugged in at home. I then had a pair of supercharger stops, as I said, which cost me £54.12. So my total charging cost down here was £62.41, and that is with a bit of energy left in the tank. Okay, so if you knock that off, you're a little bit below 60 quid. With the Outlander, as I've just said to you, it's £98 in fuel, and then you've got some electricity on top, so it's more than 100 quid. So 60 quid versus 100 quid. That's the difference that we're talking about. Now, you don't have to be very good at maths to understand that 100 quid is a much bigger number than 60 quid. And again, I didn't waste a second on the trip down driving the Tesla. When we needed to stop, we needed to eat, we needed to wee. You combine those things together, which you can't do if you drive in a petrol or diesel car. And then let's just talk about the other thing, which is just how good a car this Tesla Model Y with all of this space is as a family car. It's got a huge boot. You can fit a mountain of stuff in the back. It's got acres of rear leg room. The seats are comfortable. And of course you've got autopilot, which just takes all of the work out of driving. So all in all, this was a really relaxing experience. And before we got here, I did ask everybody, you know, what's today been like? You've basically been in the car for the entire day. How do you feel? And the feedback from everyone was, this is absolutely fine. Now, this is, I think, the point about having an EV, especially if you just get a Tesla. You don't really need to think very hard about long distances. Basically, all I did was, before I set off, I put in the destination, and we have to run past my mother-in-law's house as well, but I put in the destination and I clicked send to car, and it sends it to the Tesla so that when I get in, it already has the route planned in. And you drive, and it tells you where you're going to stop, and it tells you how long you need to be stopped for, and it automatically charges your card. There's no thinking. There is no faffing with apps. There is no having to worry about, is it going to charge or not? Is it going to be fast or not? It just works. And this is the thing that, if you've seen my other videos, and I am going to shut up now, it's the Tesla advantage. The Tesla advantage is that, unlike any other EV that you can buy at the moment in the UK, Tesla is simple. Tesla is efficient. Tesla works. Unlike any other car I could have done on this trip, it got me here quickly, and it got me here cheaply, and it got me here comfortably. And that's kind of the holy trinity. If you're doing this kind of trip, you want everybody to be happy, and you don't want to feel like you've absolutely paid a fortune. And you know what? It's fun driving this car. Even if you're on a long trip like this, and most of it was on a motorway, it's still fun because you've got all of these tech systems to be able to play with. You know, stick autopilot on for a bit, turn it off. It's a great environment to sit in. You've got the wonders of this huge glass roof. Now, at the moment, you can't really see anything exciting over it. As we went over things like the Queensferry crossing before we got to Edinburgh, everybody, not myself most of the time, but I did have a glance because I'm on autopilot, is able to look up and look at the bridge stanchions, and you've got, you know, these huge concrete things going off into the sky, and all of the steel cables and stuff going up. Because we've got this enormous glass roof, you can actually look at that. You can drive along. We got to Stansted Airport on the M11, and there's planes taking off and then landing, and the kids in the back are looking through the roof and telling me what planes are landing. You can't do that in other cars. You've just got to get a Tesla. And on that happy note, I'm going to wrap this up. Tell me in the comments what long trips you've done in a Tesla, or what trips you're worried about doing in a Tesla. If you are worried about making the switch from petrol or diesel, again, let me know in the comments, and I'll give you some reassurance. It really, really, really is very easy. And on that happy note, I'll see you very soon back here on Just Get a Tesla.